I always wanted this to come out a different way. I've been working on a fun little documentary called Behind the Batman, Ben Affleck's true vision for his Dark Knight, but I have no idea when that will ever get made. As you guys know, I'm working all the time on my Let's Play channel. I'm doing stuff over on Facebook Gaming, plus I'm busy with other projects I can't talk about. So the Batman stuff is always kind of just like news videos or whatever lore I can throw together, but this was going to be my passion project. That's something that I had been working on for months, and I feel like my hand's being forced and I just have to do it now. So what we're going to be doing is, this is just kind of like a podcast, or retelling of accounts of the Batman script as told by Joe Manganiello, the Deathstroke actor, and other staff members that cannot be named for legal reasons, who have leaked information about the script over the past 4 or 5 years on different things like Reddit, 4chan, and all kinds of places before WB and other people have scrubbed either that person's account or erased the thread altogether. We also have to thank Joe himself, because he has done various podcasts describing the movie and the plot in intricate detail, which is excellent, and some other people who were supposed to reprise their roles for characters that, well, would be a big spoiler if you knew they died. So, yeah, that's whenever those interviews happened, it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's where they were going. Now, one thing you need to know about this movie is it was heavily headed toward an R rating, which is probably one of the reasons why WB wanted to cancel it, especially the tonal difference from Joss Whedon's Justice League and, Zack Snyder's. Completely different. You could see Zack Snyder's Justice League, even though it wasn't that dark, leading into Ben Affleck's, solo project, The Batman, because this would have been a psychological thriller detective story with a lot of murderous intent, and it would be also a horror movie. The way that Joe Manganiello describes the film is that Batman would be brought to his knees after Slade learned his secret identity at the conclusion of the Justice League movie, and then basically makes Batman pay for the murder of his own son, destroying Batman's life, his allies, his family, his wealth, until Batman is brought to the very brink of death. And if it wasn't for Batgirl, Slade would have succeeded. Now, a lot of people in this movie would have died. A lot of fan favorite characters. And it would have been gut-wrenching to see this happen. But the way that the story was handled by Geoff Johns and Ben Affleck, it was beautiful. Probably the greatest Batman story that we'll never see put to film. And I want to apologize for, I wouldn't say leaking this, but talking about this in detail, because no one has ever done this, as far as I know. I've watched behind the scenes of Ben Affleck stuff, and they've only done a taste of all the different interviews that have happened for this film. They've never put it together. They've never put the pieces together. And based on my love for Batman and The Dark Knight and Ben Affleck's version of the Frank Miller Batman and the story, I've become one of its biggest defenders on the internet, because, all the Reddit leakers say that the movie was about Earth 1. It wasn't. They say that it was going more the animated series route. Not really, unless the animated series was rated R. And they completely ignore the Deathstroke actor's version of the film, because it differs from their point of view that they heard from leaks. Also, it doesn't match Geoff Johns' version of the story at all, because Geoff Johns' version of the story was about Arkham Asylum, which does appear in Ben Affleck's script, as well as the one that was finalized before the movie was going to go into post-production. Once they did their last pitch with Warner Brothers, and that's when the movie died. So you can thank Hamada, and you can thank Warner Brothers executives for telling Ben Affleck and Geoff Johns no. And then they brought in Matt Reeves, and, well, you know what happened from there. Matt Reeves, however, did see Ben Affleck's script and threw it out. Well, parts of it. I'm not accusing Matt Reeves of lifting anything from The Batman. I haven't seen the upcoming The Batman movie, but I do find it interesting that it shares similar themes to Ben Affleck's story, as told by the Deathstroke actor. So let's begin with the movie itself. Now, for legal reasons, I do not have the script in my possession. It is not on my hard drive. I have seen some elements of the script, and I've listened very carefully to interviews, written accounts of what the actors have said, and sound bites from different podcasts of the people involved in the movie, which I will not disclose their names other than Joe Manganiello, because he's been doing way more for this movie than I ever have. But yes, the script is not in my possession. I'm not sharing it. I will not post it on some forum where people can read it. It's only going to happen in this video. So if people want to listen to my retelling of it or whatever, there you go. I also don't know how accurate it is in terms of structure. Remember, films are shot in different ways, so I may think something takes place at the beginning of the movie because it sounds good, but it could be a flashback sequence, or it could take place somewhere else in the movie. How I've pieced it together, it makes sense from a narrative point of view, and that's where I'm going with. Also, the movie, at least Ben's version, borrows a lot of elements from Arkham Origins, such as the battle between him and Slade, as well as some of the characters who die and are critically injured and things like that. It mirrors some of that, but also there's a lot of psychological stuff that would be from the Long Halloween and some other like murder mysteries that Batman has done in the comics. So you can see that these guys were borrowing from key Batman stories but making it their own, and that actually works out really well, I think. Once again, this also is the Frank Miller version of Batman, so Ben's origin would mostly remain the same from that. And Geoff Johns' writing style, you know what that is. I can't mirror that, but I do know the Arkham games was a huge inspiration for this, and the New 52 relaunch, unfortunately. So, the premise of the movie is simple. At the end of Justice League, Deathstroke learns that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Deathstroke blames Batman for the death of his son. Originally, he wanted to kill Batman's son, but the Joker took that away from him. He also blames Batman for everything that's happened in his life, and Batman has appeared invincible to Slade. Slade can't touch the guy, but once he has leverage, he goes after Batman with everything he has, destroying his life, destroying his allies, killing his friends and family, and decimating his wealth, until Batman is at the very brink without his weapons, his armor, or his wits, and is at the complete mercy of Deathstroke. If it wasn't for Batgirl, Batman would have died in his own movie, which I don't think they would have let that happen, but it's pretty interesting to think about. So, a lot of this stuff, too, seems to mirror some aspects of Batman Begins, which, once again, it feels like they wanted to do this whole thing. The only way Batman could be who he is a ninja. And I'm just like, shame on you, Geoff Johns. I know that he did something like that in the New 52 where they incorporated some aspects of Batman Begins as well. But stop that. Batman is not a ninja. It worked for Nolan's world because they were trying to ground it in, you know, a more believable scenario. But stop it. Just get some help, okay? Not a ninja. He's Batman. Okay, he learned martial arts from so many different people, like through decades. He was not just taught by a group of ninjas and decided to put on a Halloween costume and fight crime. This needs to stop because it's getting ridiculous. But, according to Joe Manganiello, either the opening of the Batman or a huge aspect of it, like flashbacks, dealt with Batman and Slade Wilson training with the League of Assassins and the Sensei. So the reason why Slade was involved is because he was in the, I don't know, whatever area of Tibet or wherever the Sensei lives. It's always foggy for me. It changes based on, you know, whoever's writing the Batman books. But his wife had died. He's a widower, and he's trying to find ways of channeling his anger so he doesn't, you know, become this monster. Bruce and Slade become friends and top students under the Sensei, and the two of them, unfortunately, have a falling out when the Sensei is murdered by rival ninjas. Bruce and Slade team up and battle the League of Shadows, or League of Assassins, it varies. And then Slade betrays Bruce Wayne and joins up with Ra's al Ghul. Bruce then returns to Gotham and becomes the Batman. Many years later, Batman and Slade meet again. The Bat prevents an assassination attempt of Gotham's DA, Harvey Dent, by Deathstroke and his partner. Unknown to Batman at the time, Slade was working with his son, who may or may not be Jericho. It's never really confirmed. During the battle, Batman deduces that Deathstroke is his old friend, Slade Wilson, based on the marking on his sword's hilt that shows that of the League of Assassins. Realizing that it was Slade Wilson who killed his sensei, Batman and Deathstroke get into a deadly duel. Slade is outmatched by Batman's ruthlessness, speed, and determination, and loses. Something goes wrong during the fight, and Slade's son is killed, though. The details aren't really known other than what Joe, the actor himself, has said. And Batman has a hand in its death, which makes Slade want revenge against Batman. Deathstroke blames Batman and swears vengeance against him, and Ben was supposed to be showing a parallel between Slade and Bruce, where Bruce, when he was a child, swore vengeance against crime for killing his parents. Deathstroke swears vengeance against Batman for killing his only son. Though he continues to try and kill Batman over the years, he can't best him. He has no leverage against Batman. Eventually, Batman vanishes from Gotham altogether after Robin is killed. Or at least it appeared that way. Batman became very distraught and his methods darker, more lethal, over the years after Robin's passing, until he murders his first thug while on patrol. Not long before the events of Man of Steel, Bruce hangs up the cape, and Deathstroke feels that Batman is finished because he's broken. There's nothing more he can do to him. He then watches years later as Batman fights Superman, and plans on getting back in the game himself. At the end of Justice League, he's recruited by Lex to rescue him from Arkham. Lex offers a peace offering to the mercenary, the name of Batman's secret identity. Elsewhere, Batman is completely unaware that Lex knew he was Bruce Wayne. Slade begins stalking Bruce Wayne's socialite friends and begins killing them one by one in the Batman movie. According to various staff, Alfred and Bruce worked with Commissioner Gordon to try and discover who the killer was. Ben said Batman would utilize all his detective skills and abilities to try and learn the identity of this mass killer. Likely similar to the Arkham investigations, which would have been awesome, and we were so robbed because Ben was a huge fan of those games. So well done, Rocksteady. Now, in the movie, according to staff and rumors that were attached to the Batman when it was early in development by Ben Affleck, Batman would go into Arkham Asylum and interrogate various bad guys. A lot of former staff believe that Jared Leto's Joker was going to be one of the inmates in the movie who would have a brief cameo. Fans would have seen cameos for other cast Batman rogues that would appear in later DC projects and do a type of world building in the film. At the end of the movie, inmates would have left Arkham and appeared in other DC movies, or at least it would have been applied. After failing to stop the serial killer, eventually Bruce interrupts Deathstroke's newest hit, which was supposed to be a former girlfriend of Bruce, either Vicky Vale or Silver St. Cloud. It varies. Slade tells Batman he should tell Alfred he says hello. Seconds later in the Batcave, Alfred is caught up in an explosion as the Batcave is destroyed. But Al doesn't die. The cave is finished and Batman's gadgets and equipment and supplies are all but destroyed, leaving him at a huge disadvantage against the assassin. The Batcomputer's network is all but annihilated thanks to Deathstroke. All Bruce has left is a suit that he was wearing that is damaged when he confronted Deathstroke and the utility belt that he currently carries. Everything else is gone, beyond repair. Now that Bruce Wayne's family and friends are out of the picture, Slade targets Batman's wealth and his allies. It's not explained how he does this, but he somehow hacks Bruce Wayne's fortune and Wayne Enterprises goes almost bankrupt overnight. This is probably resolved at the film's conclusion, but Bruce Wayne is said to lose billions. This same idea, interestingly enough, was adapted into DC Comics after DC Rebirth, to make Batman appear much poorer after Future State. So some aspects of Geoff Johns' writing seems to still be alive and well at DC, I'm just saying. This also prevents medical treatment for Alfred since Bruce's assets are all but frozen. He asks help from an old ally who hates him to his very core. Someone who's never forgiven him, Barbara Gordon, the former Batgirl. Babs blames Bruce for Robin's death and hates him for it. It's implied they were an item, but because she loves Alfred like a father, she does what she can to save his life, for old time's sake, because it's what Dick would have wanted. Because Babs is back in the picture, Slade plans on making her regret her decision in joining the game. He then attempts to assassinate J.K. Simmons' Commissioner Gordon. While out to lunch, or dinner, or wherever, it varies based on different intel. What's important, though, is right in front of Barbara, Slade shoots Commissioner Gordon. This also matches up with what Joe has said about the movie's villain being like a horror movie shark, killing people close to Batman and the audience being in on the secret, but everybody else just, when you see these characters and everything appears that it's all peaceful and happy, and then boom, out of nowhere, death. So, I mean, this was going to be a very gruesome and heartbreaking scene because most likely, even though Jim's fate is unknown in the script, they probably were going to kill him. Most likely. I mean, Deathstroke doesn't really miss. I'm just saying. For the most part, my retelling is from the leaked drafts of the early scripts by Geoff Johns and Ben Affleck and other people attached. The Argo writers rewrite before, pitching it to the studio and before Matt Reeves came in. I have no idea what themes survived other than Deathstroke killing Bruce Wayne's friends and family and basically wrecking his wealth and a big confrontation between Slade and Batman at the very end. They also were going to incorporate a lot of the detective elements where Batman was chasing the serial killer who was murdering these random socialites, like just basically messing with Batman and eventually setting it up so they would meet up. So everything, the entire movie, Slade is basically playing Batman for a patsy. It was actually kind of a cool concept if you think about it. It's very different than the Arkham game, though, because Slade had a bit part. So the fact that Ben Affleck was so inspired by Slade's appearance in Arkham Origins to craft something like this just shows how talented a writer that Ben Affleck really is. Again, this is info that I'm sharing for the first time from what I've heard from ex-WB staff and people attached to Ben Affleck's movie. It might be true, it might not. But as you can tell, it sounds very interesting. But please keep in mind that this movie definitely would have kept people on the edge of their seats and more or less been an R-rated movie like The Joker. There's no way this thing could have been PG-13 unless it got like the hack-up job that Warner Brothers did to Zack Snyder's Justice League and some other things. Matt Reeves did see this script, or he saw one of Ben Affleck's Batman scripts when he was brought on to direct and later decided on replacing Ben with a younger Batman. And, of course, he made his own story, though some of the themes has been rumored to appear in the Batman movie, such as the serial killer knowing who Batman's secret identity is, killing people that know who Bruce Wayne is, forcing Bruce to go through tragedy and trauma in the movie, a figure from his past returns to ruin him, etc. All aspects of Ben Affleck's original Batman, with Riddler in the place of Deathstroke. At least that's how I interpret this. I could be way off, I haven't seen the new Batman movie. I just know that both Catwoman and the Riddler are childhood friends of Bruce Wayne. So you could see that there is some similarities. That's all I'm saying. The second arc of Ben Affleck's Batman movie is rumored to begin with flashbacks like Ben and Zach were known for filming. Possibly the death of Robin would be touched on with another cameo by Jared Leto's Joker. Each draft varies. Again, the Justice League would not show up in this movie whatsoever because they were doing this on a budget, so they weren't going to have to pay too many actors to appear in it. No JL cameos because Slade doesn't really know who the League is, their secret identity. He only knows Batman, and Batman is his only target. The reason why he destroys the Batcave is more strategic, so that the League can't interfere with his war against Batman, which is smart if you think about it in that respect. And also it's smart from a studio's point of view because you don't have to worry about having Henry Cavill show up or, Gal Gadot or Barry or any of those, because all this would be happening over the course of a few days, and it would take a while for the Justice League to find out what was going on, which it probably had to infuriate Geoff Johns that the world of Ben Affleck's Batman and Superman are so close together. Metropolis and Gotham are sister cities in this universe, and that really doesn't work for the story that Ben and Geoff Johns were building up to, because, if Superman's around after Justice League, within a few minutes of these bombs going off and all these serial killer things happening, he would easily show up. So they would have to explain some way of him not being in the movie. While it's kind of sloppy, I guess it makes sense that because the Batcave is destroyed, Batman can't contact people, but it's not like Superman doesn't watch the TV. So, but you just pretend that there's no way that the Justice League can help, okay? I think that's what they were going when they were pitching this, but I have no idea. The idea is The League can't help. Bruce would lose everything he has built his entire life for, his reputation, his wealth, and being Batman. All of it was going to be taken away bit by Deathstroke. While trying to repair some of his equipment in the remains of the Batcave, Bruce hears that Commissioner James Gordon has been shot and is in critical condition at Elliott Memorial. That's the hospital that they said they were going to use. He loses it and destroys the area of the Batcave he was fixing and shouts into the dark depths of the cave a monstrous sound. Like, this would have been, like, really showcasing Ben's, like, murderous rage and just, like, losing it. Like, there's no tethers left. He is done. There's nothing stopping him. He doesn't have Alfred whispering to him. He doesn't have any allies left. It's literally the man against the monster he's created, and the monster is slowly taking over of Ben Affleck's Batman. So that is a very psychological element of this script that I'm pretty sure Ben Affleck interjected. That doesn't sound like Geoff Johns at all. That sounds like some type of thing that Ben Affleck would have taken from either The Accountant or something else to show that there's something going on in Bruce's mind that's just driving him, excuse the term, batty. Slade, then, to be the little troll that he is, would have a little radio installed in the Batcave and basically tell Batman, it's time to finish our little game, Bruce. With nothing left to lose, since Slade doesn't know Alfred is still alive, Batman faces Deathstroke in an all-out fight to the death, similar to the Arkham Origins teaser video. A brutal battle that leaves Batman outclassed and Gotham in ruins. Due to the mental strain that Batman has gone through the past few days or weeks, again it varies, trying to catch Gotham's biggest serial killer and protect his socialite friends and his own family, Batman is not at his A-game battling Slade and almost dies. This is also supposed to be like a harkening back to either the beginning of the movie or the flashback where Batman and Deathstroke fought for the first time, and instead of Batman having the edge in that fight, this fight, Slade appears faster, more brutal, and Batman is at his mercy. Because Bruce has been going through character growth that started in BVS and was returning to how he used to be prior to the death of Robin. Eventually, they don't explain how, Batgirl shows up in the last arc of the script and helps Batman defeat Slade. Ready to kill Slade, Batgirl talks Bruce down and says he's not worth it and Dick wouldn't want you to do this. Something along those lines. It's not really known, and then the movie just, that's all the info we have. So one arc would be a detective noir storyline trying to discover who would have had a grudge against Bruce Wayne, some fun little stuff between Alfred and Batman. The second arc dealing with the consequences of his identity being exposed and learned by Deathstroke, and Alfred being hurt because of that. The third and final arc of the movie, the duel with Slade and being forgiven by Barbara Gordon. Now I want to hear from all of you, though. How does Ben Affleck's The Batman movie sound to you? Is this something you would have liked to see as a series on HBO Max, or as a comic book, or an animated movie? Let me know in the comments section below. Now again, the reason why I brought this up is because I'm sick of all the different rumors and lies, and just not necessarily trying to debunk those things, but just really painting an illustration of what we were supposed to get. Or it could be completely different. You know, I don't know what Ben's Argo writer did. I don't know how much of Geoff Johns' original Ben Affleck story made it in, but the different things that we've heard about this movie from celebrities who have seen the script and just all the praise that it had and how people are so upset that this movie was never made and how it was rejected. And you could just, if I was Ben, I would be just crushed of how the studio treated this movie, because this was his passion project. This is something that he worked on, you know, in between all his other movies. And at the same time, he was being relentlessly assaulted by the media, by, like, interviewers, all these people pestering him about Batman all the time, never paying attention to his other movies. And this was his project. This was his thing that was going to be the love letter to all Batman fans. Something that he was going to combine elements of all his favorite Batman storylines along with his own input and make a psychological thriller horror movie that we have never seen for Batman. And for Geoff Johns fans, It would have been his best Batman work ever. And I'm just going to say it, okay? The Batman script by Geoff Johns and Ben Affleck, Geoff Johns is not a very good Batman writer, okay? There are way better ones, like Chuck Dixon, even Grant Morrison has his points. It really feels like what they were going with this movie is the vibe of it would be like a noir film if David Fincher's The Game were real life. According to what, Slade's actor said, systematically destroying Bruce Wayne's life, murdering his family, friends, ex-girlfriends, Wayne Enterprises executives, possibly Commissioner Gordon and Alfred, destroying the Batcave, wrecking Bruce Wayne's wealth and reputation, attacking everything that Batman literally stands for and trying to cripple his ability to be that hero. It just, I don't know. It's such a shame that Warner Brothers prevented something like this, that they were so petty. And you could just see, whenever Ben was doing the Justice League tour, or even after his movie, he was working on this up until about 2018, when he was just done. And Matt Reeves was brought in, and all the rumors began that they were going to do a younger person. I think just like Tim Burton, when he was in those interviews with the studio, Ben was in there describing his movie, and Geoff Johns was right there, and Joe Manganiello was there, and they were pitching this, and they're putting their soul into it. They got their storyboards, and the executive, whoever it was, I don't know, could have been that lady executive that everybody hated, could be Walter Hamada, doesn't matter. The executives are sitting there in their chair, tapping their fingers, probably thinking this movie's going to be rated R. We're not going to make any money on this. It could be another flop like BVS or Justice League. And, we're not going to take a gamble on this. We'll make like a Joker movie and test the waters and see if that kind of thing can work. But, Batman is our cash cow, so this is not a good idea. And I can just see, the joy from Ben Affleck's face just drain. He was going through a lot of personal stuff, but he really loved playing that character. And Warner Brothers and Joss Whedon and the reshoots and everything about that just made him hate the film, made him hate the character that he loved so much. He wanted to be Batman for his kid. He took the role of Batman from Zack Snyder because his son thought it would be cool. He wanted to make a Batman movie that fans around the world would be proud of. Something that would really add and change the Batman's legacy and really, distance some of the jokey aspects that he was aware of, the memes and things that people say about his Batman from BVS and Justice League. The sad Ben Affleck meme, all that stuff had to really take a toll on him. And if this script in any structure is any way, shape, or form correct, then you can see that he literally knew what he was doing with the character portrayal that he was doing. It was going to be a story with Batman at his almost end. Everything taken away from him. Only his skills left to combat a monster that he can't really beat without the help of an old friend. It feels like a Batman story to me, and I think it would have been handled really, really well. And I just wish that the studios would have just been more patient. But, of course, that didn't happen, now did it? And I'm not saying that Matt Reeves' Batman movie isn't going to be good. I hope it is. But one story that we can take from this is, when all these other directors have come to Warner Brothers, one of the things that they've said time and time again is that they want creative freedom, they want to be left alone from the studio, and they'll release the movie when it's done. And I wish that all those years ago they would have given the same respect to Ben Affleck and Geoff Johns. Because, as Jay Olivia said, who was a well-known DC animated movie producer, friend of Geoff Johns, who gave us amazing films like Under the Red Hood, The Dark Knight Returns, among other popular Batman animated films, this would have been the best Batman story any Batman fan has ever read. And they would have loved Ben Affleck's Batman. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is everything that I have to tell you. That portion of this video again, was inspired by the scripts from Ben Affleck and Geoff Johns, using my own interpretation as jotted down from various interviews that Ben Affleck, Joe Manganiello, and other staff have done over the years since the movie is, scuttled. I don't know how accurate the structure of this story was or where and when it took place in the movie, but I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I liked doing my little reading of it. So hopefully now this puts to bed all the crazy rumors going around about Earth One and all the lies. And a lot of you who are Batman fans will realize what we lost. But again, I wish Matt Reeves well. I'm going to see the Batman, and I hope that it spawns a trilogy. But part of me really hopes that Discovery or someone will actually give Ben the shot that he deserves. Because I'll tell you, the world was definitely ready for that Batman movie. And the Batman that we get from Matt Reeves is not going to be like this. Later, Gothamites.